Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we are going to shift our focus towards the TCEC Superfinals or Top Chess Engine Championship Superfinals between Stockfish and Leela Chess Zero, which is still currently going on. Before showing you the game, I'm going to first give you a bit of a background on Leela Chess Zero. So Leela Chess Zero was adapted from the Leela Zero Go engine, which in turn was based on Google's AlphaGo Zero project. Like AlphaZero, Leela Chess Zero only knows the basic rules and nothing more. And as of August 2018, Leela had already trained itself by playing over 23 million games against itself, of course. This was game 29 of the match between Leela and Stockfish, and I should mention that Stockfish was actually leading the match at this point. Stockfish actually managed to score 3 consecutive wins early on, but Leela crawled back, winning 2 games, and now Leela is only a game down. So the game started from the opening book given to these machines. Leela had white in this game, and the moves were d4, f5, Dutch defense, knight c3, d5, bishop g5, g6, h4, bishop to g7, e3, c6, bishop to d3, and knight d7, which is the end of the opening book. And now Leela plays knight f3, developing the knight. We have knight g to f6, knight to e2, preparing to push the c-pawn, knight to e4, occupying the nice central square. And Leela plays bishop to f4, deciding to keep this dark square bishop, which will serve an important role later in the game. Stockfish continued with e6, going for the stonewall setup, with pawns on d5, e6 and f5. White went c4, here Stockfish castled, and Leela played a3, so that prepares to meet a check along this diagonal. For example, queen a5 with the move b4. Now black played knight to b6, queen to c2, protecting c4. So here if black were to take the pawn, hoping to win the light square bishop, white can actually take on e4 instead of capturing on c4, giving black a horrendous pawn structure. And if knight takes c4 here, after the exchange, this backward e6 pawn can be quite annoying for black. So after queen c2, Stockfish tries c5. Leela goes for this very simple but effective plan. Bishop e5. Stockfish captured on d4. We have bishop takes g7, king takes g7, and with the bishops traded, black has pretty weak dark squares around his king. And we will see how Leela takes advantage of this. Leela first recaptures the pawn. Black really doesn't want to capture on c4, but he had to play knight takes c4 anyway, because if you played a move like queen to e7, then white will go c5, and this light square bishop will never see the light of day. If black tries to maneuver the bishop, say bishop d7, bishop c6, white can always meet that with something like b4 and b5. Here white should play knight f4, stopping this e5 break as d5 will drop. And white has a fantastic position. So in the game, Stockfish reluctantly captured on c4. But this is probably the best move. So in addition to the dark square weaknesses around black's king, black also has to worry about this backward pawn. Stockfish played bishop d7. Maybe on a good day black can hope to bring the bishop to c6 along the long diagonal. So here white can think about pushing forward with the move h5. But Leela decides that king safety is more important, so here castles. Queen b6 from Stockfish. So if white plays b4, trying to stop queen takes b2, black would go bishop b5. Queen c2 is forced. White has to keep an eye on this knight. And then rook a to c8, again hitting the queen. Queen b2, and black's pieces are starting to coordinate. So after queen b6, Leela plays a4, just stopping bishop b5. and not minding queen takes b2 because this would work out tactically for white. Here rook f to b1 seems to trap the queen. Black has knight d2, which is forced not to lose immediately, and this is a very forcing line. And here rook to c7, attacking the knight. So here rook c8 is forced. If black moves the knight, say knight b6, then knight to e5, attacking the rook and also the bishop. And after rook e7, a5, white is going to win the bishop on d7. So here after rook c8, white can just take the pawn. And with this dangerous outside pass pawn, this is probably winning for white. So after the move a4, Stockfish played rook f to c8. We have queen to d3, rook c7 from Stockfish, preparing to double rooks, and here h5 from Leela. We have rook a to c8 and queen to e3 from Leela, and this is a very nice move. Leela doesn't mind the activity that black is having on the queen side. Here Stockfish captured on b2, and the point of queen e3 will soon be clear in a while. First, Leela went rook f to b1, queen to c2, rook to e1. The purpose of rook to b1 was just to annoy the black queen because black really wants to play rook c2. So with rook over to b1, queen c2, the queen has to waste another tempo coming to b2 later on. Rook to e1, just overprotecting the knight. Queen to b2. Now Stockfish really wants to double on the second rank, and now Leela plays the move h6, which was the purpose behind the move queen to e3. King to g8, knight g5, threatening to just take on e4, and this is quite unpleasant for black. If he goes back, knight f6, hoping for white to take, white would actually lose here after knight g4, hitting the queen, and the queen cannot maintain defense of the knight. But here white can actually go queen e5, hitting this knight and also looking at the mate on g7. If knight h5, then knight f4, and this is very bad for black. So after knight g5, black can take on g5, but this only improves the position of the queen, and the dark squares around black's king are looking incredibly weak. So instead of taking the knight, here Stockfish played queen to b4, allowing Leela to capture and regain the pawn. So Leela can just play queen takes e4, but instead plays a better move, knight to g3, bringing the knight into play. We have bishop c6, knight takes e4, bishop takes, queen takes, and rook to e8, just defending e6. And now queen to e5, a very nice centralizing move, and this really ties black down. Now attacking the rook, looking at e6, and also looking at g7. So here Stockfish played rook f7, rook e2 from Leela, just overprotecting f2. Queen back to e7, and now Leela goes rook to c1, grabbing the nice open c file. And this is just a very comfortable position for white. Now we have b6, Leela goes g3, stopping any counterplay possibilities, for example queen h4. And now we have queen to f6, hoping to hold the worst endgame. So here Leela accepts the queen trait, but first plays rook to c6, improving the position of the rook. Queen takes, and here d takes e5. You might be thinking, why not capture with the rook and keep the pressure on e6? Well, this is actually not a bad move, but black will also have a target here on d4. So the pawn capture is better because white has the option of going f4, and black is always stuck with this target on e6. So here g5 played by Stockfish to make it more difficult to go f4, but this really isn't an issue for white. Now Leela plays king to g2, preparing to advance the king to support f4. We have rook to f5, king h3, king to f7, king g4, king g6, and here f4. Now if king takes h6, then white wins with a very nice tactical shot. Rook takes e6. And after rook takes, this rook is now undefended, so king takes f5, and white is easily winning this endgame. So after f4, Stockfish dropped the rook back, rook f7, and now that everything is nice and protected, Leela brings the second rook into the game. Rook d2. We have g takes f4, rook d to d6. And this is looking lost already for black. White's rooks are just too active and e6 is a very big problem. So here we have rook f to e7. If pawn takes g3, this would simply run into mate. So here rook f7, rook f to e7. We have g takes f4, king f7, king h5, rook to f8, and now f5, just threatening to win the e6 pawn. So here Stockfish had to take, and now white has this dangerous e pawn, which cannot be taken after king g5, because if rook takes, then rook c7, king e8, rook d to d7, and white's rook activity is just overwhelming. Black's king is in a mating net after moves like rook takes h7, rook c8, or rook takes, rook a8. So rook takes e5 is impossible. Here Stockfish played rook f to e8. We have rook f6 check, king to g8, and e6. Black has absolutely no counterplay whatsoever. The game continued f4, king takes, a6. Black doesn't have any good moves. Rook takes b6. Rook a7, king e5. The king is now joining in the action. We have rook c7, king to d6, rook a7, a5, rook d8 check, king c6, and in this position Stockfish resigned. Let me just play out a possible continuation. So here if rook takes d7, this is going to be a very easy win for white. So rook b5. The pawn approaches, rook f8, and white wins. So at the time of making this video, both Leela and Stockfish are playing game number 52, and Leela is currently leading the match by a game. So that is all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching and see you soon.